People that are cohabitating are usually not merging their finances.
Oh,
They're
no.
living separately.
They're roommates.
Yeah.
And neither one are going to get as far.
Women, when you play house with a man, they're 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They're not all the way in.
These are decisions you get to decide. You're not a victim of your choices. You are
A consequence of your choices. Can you imagine being poor at 80? I don't even want to think or fathom it.
It's better to have $500,000 or even $1 million in retirement by the time you retire versus having nothing.
Mm-hmm. Why is it age 20 happens to be this magical age? Because that's the point in time where you finally start to sort of almost kind of figure out and have a little bit of behavioral discipline financially. Why? Because you had to do it on your own for 2 years, 18 to 20. You have to get 10% total investment on your income is your base minimum.
Not
Investing
doing
in your youth is the most important thing that you can do as a human being. It's more important than education. I regret going to college. If I would have just taken my college money and invested it, I'd be so much richer than I am now. So we're going to see what Dave Ramsey has to say about shack up versus marriage. This one,
He's going to say you need to get married.
I
don't
know what
shack
he's going to
up.
say.
We all
I
know
just
what
think
he's
it's
gonna
important
say.
that we go through this exercise so that the audience can learn about this because it's absolutely the thing that everybody needs to do. And I know also that I completely 100% agree with Dave Ramsey. I think we're going to find out.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if he said, oh, yeah, shack up.
when some of you in the listening audience, when I address someone who's shacking up versus being married, and you think that I'm just being overly Bible-thumping or Christian or something like that, that could...
Nope. I'm going to tell you this. I've seen it. I'm a divorce lawyer. Done it for 17 years. I have seen thousands, and Dave is about to give us correct advice.
Be true. I can be accused of those things, and that's fine, and be guilty. Guilty as charged. But why would that be? Why would I bother and intersect your life on a personal level like that when you're calling to ask me about something else? Because it's an economic problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a statistic that I'm noticing in our firm. More than half of the people that are coming to me for prenuptial or postnuptial agreements, I talk them out of it. It's become pure missionary work because my consultation rate is half of my hourly rate. And I get the consultation, they thank me for everything I've done, and then they don't get the prenup because they realize it's not the right thing to do. Because running your finances separately, you're not going to get to the level of wealth that you should get to. And if you're living together and trying out the marriage, it's not going to work. You're much more likely to break up. You're much less likely to have a good and healthy marriage. It's not a good idea.
Right.
Really interesting article this week in The Federalist, Federalist.com, thefederalist.com, if you want to look up the article. The article says, the research proves the number one social justice imperative is marriage.
Yep. No question.
Yep.
No question. It works, and it works well if you do it the right way.
I don't have time to go through the whole article, but this is just really intriguing research. It says just 70 years ago, social mobility and protection from poverty were largely a factor of employment. Those who had full-time work of any kind were seldom poor. 50 years ago, education marked the gulf separating the haves and the have-nots. For the last 20 years or more, though, marital status has increasingly become the central factor in whether our neighbors and their children rise above, remain, or descend into poverty.
Yep. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
The research is astounding. In 1960, the poorly and moderately educated were only 10% less likely to be married than the college educated, with both numbers quite high, 84 and 94% respectively. That parity largely held until the late 1970s, i.e. the sexual revolution, by the way. Professor Bill Galston, President Clinton's domestic policy advisor and now a senior fellow at Brookings, explained that in the early 1990s that an American need only to do three things to avoid living in poverty.
Which is graduate from high school,
Get a job.
get a job, and don't have kids until after you're married. Those three things. Very, very clear.
Graduate from high school, marry before having a child, and have that child after age 20. Only 8% of the people who do so, he reported, will be poor, while 79% who fail to do those all three will be poor.
Yep.
Wow.
Very, very high correlation.
Yeah.
If you fail to do that, wait till after 20 to have kids, Wait to have kids until after you're married and graduate from high school. You're 79% more likely to be in poverty.
Yep.
Only 8% who follow the sequence are in poverty. You want to do away with poverty? Get it in the right order.
Right.
Yep. There's a reason. I mean, there's an order of operation. You play a video game backwards, or you do certain sections of a video game and you don't get to the end.
Right.
Life's the same way. It's no different. There's an order of operations and things that you should do life in. If you do them out of order, you can't get ahead in certain things. Oh, well, I should be. It shouldn't be like that. You don't live in the world of should. You live in the world of is.
Or you're having to overcome obstacles on your way.
Exactly.
Which makes life harder.
Exactly.
That's what the data shows. Graduate from high school, get married, have a kid after you're married, after 20. Those are the only things you got to do.
Yep. Get a job. Helps.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's the other one.
And then you have a 92% likelihood you won't be in poverty. You have a 79% likelihood you will be in poverty if you don't do it in that order. That's amazing.
Yep.
Sociologists have referred to keeping these things in proper order as the success sequence. It remains
The success sequence. Exactly. There's a sequence for success. I mean, you tie your shoe out of order, you ain't going to get your shoe tied. You do anything out of order. There's certain orders that things work in.
Cake out of order, right?
Yeah.
You can't cook the cake without putting the ingredients in.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not going to be, you can't accomplish it.
Right. You can't drive the car unless you get in the car first. Pretty obvious, right?
Right.
It just doesn't work.
It's true according to new research investigation from Brookings, and the American Enterprise Institute takes a deeper look at the first comes love, then comes marriage sequence by class and by generation. A recent report on this topic, focusing on millennials, reports that 97% of those who follow the success sequence earn at least a high school diploma, work, and marry before having children, will not be poor as they enter their 30s. This is largely true for ethnic minorities and those who grew up in poor families.
Yep.
But sadly, fewer millennials are keeping these things in order compared to their boomer and X or forebearers.
Millennials, can I tell you something? As a member of Generation X, you should listen to the Generation Xers.
Because we learned a lot from what our parents didn't do. At least I did.
Did you?
I mean, my parents didn't have retirement. They didn't have any of that. They didn't teach me how to save. They didn't teach me about debt. They didn't teach me about credit card. I had to learn all that on my own. And I had to learn it the hard way. So, like,
well, you're still learning it. You're taking Financial Peace University right now.
But even like with my own kid, you know, I'm like, hey, see this graph? Snap a picture. This is what you should be saving. This guy saved from 20 to 30, and then he didn't have to save again for the rest of his life and had over $2 million.
Yep.
You know, I literally sent that to him. I'm like, you're 19. Do it now. You know,
we're going to do another
19
show on
to
that.
30.
Everybody, if you're in the sound of my voice, subscribe to this channel because we are going to prove to you that two major things. One, if you work at age 16 to 17 and you bank 90% of the money that you make, even at minimum wage, but we don't even have to do minimum wage because the effective minimum wage is like $12 an hour at least.
Most of the time, yeah.
Because all the fast food places around are paying at least $12 an hour.
I mean, Chick-fil-A starts them out at like 8 something an hour in the beginning, but they
for 2 weeks while they're training?
For like, no, it's over the course of months.
Well,
it depends on how they're
We'll
how
run
they're
it
doing.
at $12 an hour is easy for a kid to get by the time that they're 17. No problem. We'll run it at minimum wage and show that if you're living at home, you don't spend the money, you work full time from 16 to 17, and then you invest that money, how you'll be one of the richest people on the planet just from that.
Yep.
Not doing anything else, live the whole rest of your life. Now, we'll show you when you do continue to invest for the rest of your life, because the best thing that also does is teaches you to invest, which is The Secret. Richest Man in Babylon, George Clason. Read it on YouTube. You can listen to it for free. Greatest investment book that there is, period. It teaches you the basics, the fundamentals. Every human being should watch that. Read that book, listen to it. Follow those principles. It's how money is done. If you don't, you won't get wealthy. If you do, you will. That's the sequence. That's the order. Mm-hmm. That's the key. One of the reasons why they're saying, why is it age 20 happens to be this magical age? Because that's the point in time where you finally start to sort of almost kind of figure out and have a little bit of behavioral discipline financially. Why? Because you had to do it on your own for 2 years, 18 to 20. And it takes about 2 years for you to figure any of that stuff out. Mm-hmm. Or you can subscribe to this podcast and watch these lessons. If you take $8 an hour, 40 hours a week, $320 a week, you take $320 a week for 1 year from age 16 to age 17. And then you invest that at the normal rate of return of the American stock market, which is 12.5%. You're going to be rich. You either do it or you don't. And if you don't, shame on you. Shame on me for not doing it. Shame on everybody. I didn't have the information at the time. I didn't know that.
Well, I think also what our viewers need to know is even if you're not 18, let's just say you're 35, you've never saved $1 for retirement.
Do it now.
Yes. You're not
You know
late.
when the best time to plant a tree?
It's better to have $500,000 or even $1 million in retirement by the time you retire versus having nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Because this is the problem. This is what my mindset was for many years. Oh, yeah, I'll get to it. Oh, yeah, I'll get to it. No, you won't ever get to it.
Right. And yesterday was the best time for you to invest.
If you have a 401k.
10 years ago was the best time for you to invest. 20 years ago was the best time to invest. You know what the second best time? Right now.
Yeah.
You know what a bad time to do? Tomorrow. Because you won't. It's a behavioral issue. You have to change your own behavior.
We had a young kid that worked with us at Bob's. He was like right when he turned 18 or maybe, well, no, he was like maybe 20. Anyway, 401k or 21. I think there's a limit. You got to be 21 or something for 401k in a company. Anyway, when he turned it, I can't believe the amount of my staff that were pressuring him to get a 401k. You need to get a 401k. You need to get a 401k. You'll be a millionaire by this age.
Yep.
Like they knew.
Yep.
They knew. And they just kept on and on and on at him. He finally signed up for it. And they're like, I mean, they like had like, I thought they were going to have a party for him.
Yep.
Like, because they knew. They were like, you don't realize you're young enough now. You're going to reap all these benefits from this. But he was at first so adamant about not doing it.
Investing in your youth is
Yes.
the most important thing that you can do as a human being. It's more important than education. I regret going to college. If I would have just taken my college money and invested it, I'd be so much richer than I am now.
Well, if you are a person that has to have Starbucks every single day or whatever, learn how to make a Starbucks coffee at your house because you can, and you can make it very affordable and probably healthier for yourself. And take that money and put it towards your retirement. Like there are things you can cut out that you don't need. Like literally, I mean, I was just blown away how much fluff that was in our budget.
If you can invest 40% of what you take home, and out of the 60% that you're spending, if your Starbucks is in that 60%, great, whatever, who cares? If you're at 40%, or 50%, but can you get to 60%? Can you get to 90%? Because the people that do that, you wait 10, 20 years, and Starbucks will be inconsequential to you.
You need to at least invest the maximum that your company that you work for is going to match.
That's the absolute basic. But a lot of times that's 3%. And if they match 3% and you put in 3%, now you're at 6%.
I was putting 20% in.
You have to get 10% total investment on your income is your base minimum. 20% is where you start going, okay, I'm doing good. But once you get to 20%, look at the difference between 40% and look at the spending that you're doing and going, do I want this temporary nonsensical stuff for now? Or do I want 100 times that in 20 years?
Well, and think about it like this. Now you're worth this amount of money. Like a lot of people don't realize that, but like I don't think about our retirement, but then when I put the math into play and the equity in my house, I'm like, hey, we're actually worth this amount of money.
Yeah.
And so, increase your net worth.
If you have $1 million in an investment account that makes 12.5%, that's $125,000 that you make that year and every year from now on. Then the next year you have 1.125 million. That means that you're 12.5%. The next year you earn $132,000 from that. The year after that, it's 145. The year after that, it's 170. The year after that, it's 220. The year after that, it's 280. The year after that, it's 380. The year after that, it's almost 500,000 because you have money. Well, once it gets to where you're earning $1 million, then take 10% of that, and now you have a $100,000 Starbucks budget.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that long. Look around you. Every person that's over 40 years old, all of them got to 40. You're going to be there.
If you're not already there. But if you are, don't panic. Even though you're behind, don't panic.
Yeah,
You can
start
still
now.
can
Because
get caught
where
up.
these kids would have this blessing at age 40, you can have this blessing at age 60. And I'd sure rather have that blessing at age 60 than never.
Right.
And if you're 60, then you can have the blessing at 80. And I'd sure rather have that blessing at 80 than never. Can you imagine being poor at 80? I don't even want to think or fathom it.
No. Living off Social Security,
No.
that might not even exist
Right.
down the road.
Who knows?
Yeah, and then you're on such a tight budget, and honestly, Social Security won't pay rent in an apartment nowadays.
It's not going to do anything for you.
No. So you're either going to be on the streets, or you're going to have to, rely on your children.
Mm-hmm.
And what if your children aren't reliable?
Yeah. Or
So
I don't even have kids.
You have to you have to think about the future
Mm-hmm.
in that perspective.
Yep.
By the way, if you don't know the statistics, sidebar, more people now live together that are not married than live together who are married.
Oh my God.
Yep, I believe that. People play house. Well, if
not
it doesn't
good.
work with this person,
terrible.
I'll just go get with somebody else.
That ruins people's lives. It's just not
Yeah.
good. You should not
well,
do it at all.
What people need to realize is, if it's not going to work with that person, it's not going to work with the next person.
Right.
Because that's the mentality that you
Yep.
have. And marriage works because it takes two people working together on
Exactly.
a relationship and growing that relationship. If one person's in and one person's out, it is never going to work. Women, when you play house with a man, they're 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They're not all the way in. So you need to
And
get
people will
married.
move in together far too quickly and not
Yes.
take the consideration of what it really is. And so
Right.
now you're in a relationship that if you weren't in such a hurry to move in together, you actually might not have even had.
Right.
Yeah, if you're old enough to remember Leave It to Beaver, June and Ward Cleaver, they're dead. Okay? More people now shack up than not. The success sequence of First Comes Love is so much more than moral choice, according to this article, or romantic idealism. These are deeply pragmatic economic decisions powerfully affecting class mobility, where people live on the social scale and the opportunities they will be able to provide for their children.
Exactly.
Well, you want
It's exactly correct.
right,
It's
and you
just
want,
correct.
You want to teach your children
Mm-hmm.
correctly,
Yep.
because if you are shacking up with somebody and you've got kids together, then that's showing your kids it's
Even if
okay
you
to
don't
do
have
that. And do
kids.
you really want that for your kids?
That's right.
99% of people will say no. I don't want my kids to be with someone without being married to them.
Yep.
So then why are you doing that?
Exactly. Why are you letting your parents' kid do that?
This is because of the extraordinary economic power of marriage.
Exactly.
The consistent and irrefutable mountain of research has shown, reaching back to the 1970s and beyond, that marriage strongly boosts every important measure of well-being for children, women, and men. Pick any measure you can imagine.
Yep.
Overall physical and mental health, income, savings, employment, educational success, general life contentment, happiness, sexual satisfaction, even recovery from serious disease, healthy diet and exercise. Married people rate markedly and consistently better in each of these, and so many more compared to their single, divorced, and cohabitating peers.
Yep. No question. I know I do.
Yeah.
I know you do. In fact, one of the things he said was recovery from disease. Your Hashimoto's, just today you reported complete remission, not even detectable at this point.
Right.
Of course.
This,
have a good
thus,
marriage.
is an essential active ingredient in improving one's overall life prospects, regardless of class, race, or educational status.
Yep.
That is why it's not merely one-parent versus two-parent families that make the difference. The U.S. Census Bureau finds that the poverty rate for children living in poverty with two unmarried cohabitating parents is similar to that of single mother homes, rather than those that were married mother and father. Married people, regardless of how much they have, tend to manage their money differently than
Absolutely.
divorced, single, and cohabitating people.
And that's one of the hardest things is, especially if you've got somebody that's already been damaged, they are divorced, and then they've got something, and then they're divorced, they've got something. Very difficult.
Well, people that are cohabitating are usually not merging their finances.
Oh,
They're
no.
living separately.
They're roommates.
Yeah.
And neither one are going to get as far.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Right.
This just goes on and on and on and on. Where is it? Only 4% of the homes with a married mother and father
It's
are on
12
food stamps.
hours.
But 21% of cohabitating and 28% of single mother homes require such public assistance.
Numbers speak for themselves.
Yep.
There's a high correlation between economically winning and getting married before having children, graduating from high school, and having children after 20.
Not just a correlation, it's a causation.
These are decisions you get to decide. You're not a victim of your choices. You are a
A consequence of your choices.
result of your choices.
Exactly.
You get to decide these things. Decide these things. Here's another example. Did you know that you're statistically very likely to stay married if you're engaged at least 6 months? You want to add probability to stay married? Engage 6 months and make $50,000 a year household income or greater. Oh, add probability to that? 4 years of education. Oh, add probability to that? Pre-marriage counseling in depth, not a drive-by 1 hour session with the preacher, but I'm talking about in-depth pre-marriage counseling where you talk about her mama.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could change this. You can make decisions to change your whole direction of your family tree. This marriage thing is real. This is very interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting. TheFederalist.com, the research proves the #1 social justice imperative is marriage.
Without a doubt, healthy marriage. This is the Lawyer Dana Show.